This is the U.S. Army's state-of-the-art tank, the M1A2. With its computer-controlled firing systems and digital communications, this giant lump of metal is highly sophisticated.
The A2 is really the first information age tank. It's more like a computer behind an armored box. It really is the dawn of a new era in tanking.
It's also extremely powerful. The gas turbine engine delivers an awesome 1,500 horsepower.
The tank can go 30 miles an hour cross country, allowing the gunner to engage targets out to and beyond 2,000 meters. That's more than most off-road vehicles can go at 30 miles an hour. Cross country, you're shaking all over this place. Imagine driving 68.5 tons. This thing weighs 68.5 tons, fully combat loaded.
The armor on a tank has to provide protection for the vehicle and its crew. But if it carries too much armor, it can't move fast enough. The challenge is to gain maximum protection with minimum weight. For the M1A2, the armor is cut from steel plate. In places, protection is up to a foot thick. The total weight of this armored plate accounts for half the weight of the fully laden tank. Each tank is held together by 1.5 miles of welding. The welds alone weigh over half a ton. Tanks are built in 2 separate parts.
What goes in this big hole here is the turret, which contains the weapon systems of the tank.
Inside the hull are pipes and cables to link the digital processors which control the tank.
It's more like a computer within a big armored box, sort of like your internal LAN system within your home PC.
The systems are high-tech, but the tank's mobility still depends on the continuous tracks invented 80 years ago. They're designed to spread the weight of the tank over a large surface area, so it's less likely to get bogged down. On the M1A2, each track is 50 feet long, made up of 79 metal segments with replaceable rubber blocks. The tracks are driven by drive wheels, powered by the engine at the rear of the tank. The tank is steered by altering the speed at which each track is driven. The killing power of a tank is determined by its firepower. The main armament of the M1A2 is the 120mm smoothbore gun. Before it is installed into the tank, every gun is tested with live ammunition. Tanks are controlled by computer, and every last electrical component must be checked. These systems also allow the crew to communicate by email with the command center and to receive pictures showing where the tank stands on the battlefield. When the turret and the hull are completed, they're joined together. The seal is so perfect that it protects the crew from chemical warfare. Each tank consists of over 5,000 parts and costs $4.5 million. The final stage is to paint the exterior in the relevant camouflage colors. From start to finish, it takes 4 months to build each tank. Before any tank is delivered to the Army, it's put through its paces to make sure it's fully functional. If there are any operational problems, they're easy to identify.
This tank will tell you when it's not feeling well. And not only will it tell you when it's not feeling well, it'll tell you what part of it isn't feeling well.
The advanced suspension system is tested on the factory's bump track. These trials include acceleration tests up to its top speed of 42 miles per hour and an emergency stop.
It can go from 30 miles an hour to a full stop in 10 feet.
It can hold steady on a 60-degree slope. And it can cross a river up to 4 feet deep.
When I first got on this tank and got trained on it, my immediate thought was, man, it's the closest thing to flying without leaving the ground. I mean, you get into that and it's like entering a whole new world in the capabilities, the functionalities, and the potential that this weapon system has over previous weapon systems.
The Challenger-2 is the latest main battle tank produced by the pioneers of tank design. The British Army first introduced tanks to the battlefield in 1916 and have played an important role in their development ever since. The Challenger traces its heritage back to Britain's Chieftain tank. When the Chieftain entered service in 1966, it was the most heavily armored of all main battle tanks. With an emphasis on armored protection, the Chieftain's turret was carefully contoured to optimize the thick steel of its armor. The Chieftain balanced its superb protection with a powerful 120mm gun, much larger than the 105mm guns common to most tanks of the 1960s and 70s. But thick steel armor makes tanks heavy and slow, and the Chieftain was guilty on both counts. Britain needed a faster, more sophisticated tank. During the 1970s, under the codename Burlington, British designers developed a radical new type of tank armor. This complex composite armor became known as Chobham armor, named after the city in which it was developed. How it works and what exactly it's made from remain top secret, but it is highly effective. Most experts believe the armor consists of complex layers of metal and advanced ceramics. When the Challenger-1 appeared in the 1980s, it was the first British tank to incorporate this highly effective protection. Chobham armor made the Challenger nearly invulnerable to frontal attack from deadly high-explosive anti-tank or heat rounds. Besides its enhanced protection, the Challenger was more mobile than the Chieftain. A 1,200 horsepower diesel engine and advanced suspension system gave the tank a top speed of 35 miles per hour and a smooth ride despite obstructions and rough terrain. One of the most important advances in tank design in the 1980s was in gunfire controls, which permitted the tank to fire on the move. The heavily armored turret of the Challenger weighs 20 tons, yet it must be moved with extreme precision to hit targets a mile or more away. In 1994, the Challenger-2 entered service in the British Army. The Challenger-2 has over 150 improvements to its predecessor, the Challenger-1, and many entirely new features, such as its turret design.
Challenger-2 looked like its predecessor. Its hull and running gear were very similar. It was there that the comparisons ended. The turret was a radically different design that highlighted that there were 150 improvements on this tank. The Challenger-2 was slightly heavier, but faster. It had a new power plant with a 26-litre diesel engine. The gun was a deadlier version of the record-holding 120mm, and the armour that surrounded this fighting machine was an improved form of Chobham, codenamed Dorchester. The only real clue on the exterior that the new tank had only 4% commonality with its predecessor was the relocated TOGS sight, which gave both the gunner and commander a clearer view of the battlefield. The real improvement was in the new Hunter-Killer fire control system, a computer-aided procedure that allowed the commander to stay one step ahead of his gunner at all times. Using his roof-mounted sight, the commander selects his kill. The turret moves round and the gunner takes over the engagement, whilst the commander scans and selects his next victim. Once the gunner has destroyed the first tank, the turret automatically slews round to align the gun on the commander's prepared target, and the procedure starts again. With the Hunter-Killer system, the Challenger could unleash a barrage of lethally accurate fire that allowed it to destroy 8 enemy targets in just 40 seconds.